Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and recently I've received a lot of questions asking about demonology as a whole after the nerfs to 8.1.5 brought with it, so I felt today would be a great time to talk about them. Now, before we get too far into that, if you're interested in any of the weak auras or add-ons you see here, I'll have a link to my Twitch and Discord in the description where I stream all of our Mythic progression down below. So with the first week of 8.1.5 being in the books at this point, and having played Demonology for the majority of it, I think that it's safe to say that the changes can certainly be felt in both our single target DPS, as well as AoE via the Felguard fix. But let's be honest here, guys, we knew these changes were coming, and they are warranted. Demonology was so far ahead of every other spec in the game when it came to pure single target encounters, that even on progression fights where adds were present, it was still considered to be the best spec overall to play, barring a few circumstances. The fact that it lasted all the way until 8.1.5 is a surprise in itself, but I have to say that even after the actual nerfs and bug fixes, Demonology is still in a good place as a whole. When it comes to Mythic Plus, Demonology was the best spec to play even before the initial changes to explosive potential. The fact that EP is still a very strong choice for us in every scenario, alongside some other reasons, still makes Demonology the best Warlock spec in Mythic Plus. Yes, the changes to our Felguard's energy generation can certainly be seen, but we're still able to compete with most of the highest DPS meta comps in Mythic Plus. The real issue with Demonology, and I guess in the same sense Warlocks as a whole, is that we bring very little to the group utility-wise. Yes, we do have Hellstones, a Battle Res, and Demonic Gateway, but other classes or specs such as Boomkin, Rogue, Demon Hunter, Mage, and Elemental Shaman, to name a few, bring either the same utility in addition to other things, such as CC, shorter interrupts aren't tied to a pet, or actual party CDs, in addition to other things as well. Sure, both Hellstones and Gateway are nice to have around, but I would much rather have something like Glyph of Fear, where it used to fear your enemy in place, than Hellstones and Gateway as a whole. The fact that Demonology still has no way to interrupt with our Felguard is really disappointing, especially due to the fact that it's the baseline pet you run with the spec specifically. Our damage was just so high, especially with demonic consumption being an insane 1.5 minute cooldown before 8.1.5, that it sort of pushed the utility issue to the side, but once again it's back to the forefront after the nerfs. Outside of the actual utility issue, I still think that Demonology is a strong spec in Mythic Plus currently. However, like I said, the lack of utility is real, especially when it comes to running higher keys and or pushing for either world first or fastest times overall. Now, as far as raiding and BOD goes, we've certainly seen a shift away from Demonology being the best choice on almost every fight. However, the spec does bring something very unique to each fight. As I mentioned briefly a second ago, the fact that Demonic Consumption is the best choice in our final talent row and your Demonic Tyrant is only a 1.5 minute CD means that we effectively have CDs almost twice as much as Destruction and Affliction if you're holding Dark Soul for either Infernal or Dark Lair, which is however not always the case. This is especially relevant on fights like Mythic Opulence, where you can squeeze in additional CDs while moving in Phase 1, and then one Massive Tyrant in Phase 2, Mecha Torque, and also Mythic Jaina, which allows you to Tyrant both her in Phase 2.5, which is effectively the wall phase, and Final Phase, where Destruction and Affliction only get one cycle of CDs in. Outside of certain encounters, however, the nerf really did open the door for both Affliction and Destruction on other fights in BOD. Destruction parses with sets consisting of multiple Flashpoint and Rolling Havoc pieces have begun to surface on fights like Champion of the Light, Jadefire Masters, Conclave, Blockade, and even Jaina. We're also starting to see Affliction parses running either Absolute Corruption or Inevitable Demise on Mechatorque, Rastakhan, and Blockade, which mostly used to be Demonology fights. The thing is, and we touched on this briefly before the tier actually began as well, is that both Affliction and Destruction have traits that gain a tremendous amount of value in different situations, like Rolling Havoc, Flashpoint, and Inevitable Demise. Sadly, Demonology really does not have much at all outside of minor Demonic Meteor Cleave, really, which is pretty much irrelevant anyways. We have a great deal of single target based traits, but in a raid consisting of many ad based encounters, it really does not put us in the best spot on most fights. As far as actual traits go post nerf though, Explosive Potential is still your best overall choice at 2 and 3 stacks. Baleful Invocation grants a tremendous DPS increase at 1 stack, while also still being strong at 2 and 3 stacks as well. The only real issue with Baleful Invocation's damage aspect is that it's tied to your 1.5 minute Demonic Tyrant CD, while Explosive Potential provides a consistent haste buff as long as you maintain the actual buff. With Demonic Consumption being so powerful at the moment, both due to its 1.5 minute CD and actual damage output, however, multiple stacks of Baleful Invocation are still certainly worthwhile. Demonic Meteor is also a great trait for Mythic Plus as well as raids, especially when paired with Soul Conduit. While there's a good bit of RNG tied into both your shard refunds being Soul Conduit and Demonic Meteor, running both can lead to some very large Demonic Tyrants. The bonus Hand of Gul'dan splash damage is also nice and plus, especially on Reaping Waves or when pulling multiple packs at once. There are also a few other traits such as Treacherous Covenant, Endless Hunger, and Blightborn Infusion, to name a few, that bring with them main or secondary stat effects, which are also worth looking out for. Just beware of Treacherous Covenant's actual downside. In the end, I do still feel that Demonology is in a great place for Mythic Plus, while also being in a decent place for raiding and BOD. Like I said, our lack of utility is certainly more relevant in keys now than it was before, but all we can really do is hope that there are changes in 8.2 addressing some of the issues. I recently played Demonology to a Mythic Jaina kill as well, and feel that it's certainly a strong choice for the encounter due to our CD timing and such as mentioned before. I'm also still playing Demonology almost solely in Mythic Plus at the moment, and like I said, it still brings the heat, but we sadly just aren't bursting to 70k or so on single target bosses anymore. I hope this video helped you all get a better understanding of where we're sitting currently and where we are heading into Crucible of Storms. Once again, if you're interested in any of the weak auras or add-ons you've seen here, I have a link to my Twitch where I stream all of our Mythic progression in the description below. Let me know how you guys are feeling post-nerf in the comment section. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them there, and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to see more WoW content and help support the channel, smash those like, share, and subscribe buttons, as your support really helps. I will also be releasing my 8.1.5 spec guides for both raiding and Mythic Plus within the next week or so as well, so be sure to check back if you want to see those. Thanks again guys, and I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.
Beware.